continuing today in 1 John. We were in 1 John last week as well. And it's very interesting sometimes. I don't always follow the lectionary, but I normally do. The lectionary is a 3-year cycle of readings that are recommended, used by many churches. The purpose of the lectionary, in case you don't really know it, is that every person, every pastor, every Christian has their own kind of favorite topics that they like to talk about, and there are others that maybe they don't like to talk about. And the lectionary kind of forces you to be broader in what you preach about than if you just pick your own scriptures all the time. And sometimes I've found it in my life as a pastor very interesting how that sometimes the lectionary text just seems to be, despite the fact it repeats itself every 3 years and is already set, seems to be just the text that we need for the moment in our congregation. And we have just finished in the Bible study on Friday nights the 3 letters of John. So it's just not been that long ago that we were covering 1 John in Bible study. Today, though, despite the fact that it is the lectionary, is one of my favorite themes. It has to do with how we focus ourselves. You know, there are multiple places we can focus, right? Some of us over-focus on work to the neglect of our families, right? Some of us over-focus on, I don't know, for me it might be NFL football, for some of you it might be cricket, for others it might still be some other kind of recreational event or sporting event, and sometimes we can get caught up in those things so much so that if we're watching a match and our child or our spouse wants to talk to us, it's like, oh, don't bother me now, right? That never would happen. No? Okay. And believe it or not, and I've got to be really careful when I say this, because I don't want you to get the wrong idea. So listen carefully. Some people even over-focus on church. Now notice I said on church. Not on their faith, not on God, but on church. And church work is important. But people can use the church to run from their relationships as much as they can use anything else. And if it's church and not the work of the Lord that you focus on, then that's not a good focus either. Likewise, we can focus in the past. Some of us have trouble forgetting the past, don't we? Some of us like to dwell on the good old days. Although most of us, if we ever get a chance to really look carefully, we find out the good old days weren't as good as we thought. And some of us like to focus on the shortcomings of ourselves or others in the past. And one of the reasons for that is so we don't have to hope for the future. You know, one of my least favorite phrases, and I'm really glad my wife's not here today. I'm usually not glad she's not here. But today I'm really glad she's not, because this is one of the things she and I really disagree about. One of the phrases she often uses is, "That tells me everything I need to know." Nothing tells us everything we need to know. And usually that's, of course, because she's really had a frustrating time with a coworker or somebody, and she's like, I don't want to bother with them anymore, right? I'm sure none of you have ever done that. Have you ever written somebody off? Oh, and you do that how? By looking at the past and you say, that tells me there's no reason to expect a different future, right? And some people over-focus on the future. It's always, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And they're so focused on the future that they want never comes because they do nothing in the present. You know, you call those people dreamers, right? Oh yeah, you've got big ideas, but nothing ever comes from them. Today's text tells us that we really need to focus on the present, the now. Because the now changes the past into the future. Hear that? The now changes the past into the future. So if you want something to happen in the future, you make that happen, but in the now, not by thinking about the future. And if you want to let the past go, you do that by focusing on the now, not on focusing on the past. I have this wonderful exercise that you should be very good at. All right, are you ready? Everybody should participate. You boys too. Aha, I got you, didn't I? All right, hold your hands apart like this. Are you ready? On the count of 3, bring them together. 1, 2, 3. All right. This is the past. This is the future. The moment was when the two hands met. Now, you can anticipate the future when your hands are like this, right? You know that when they come together, they're going to make a sound. But you haven't made a sound yet, right? And you can know after the sound is made that you clap, but you know what? As soon as you do, the past is already set, right? That clap is there. If you are focusing on the present, you can bring your hands this close together, but you haven't made the past yet, right? And you haven't created the future yet that you planned on. I talk to the children about being ready for things to change. See, our plan might be to clap, but if something prevented us, then the anticipated noise wouldn't happen, right? Well, that's a simple way to illustrate a very important thing about how to overcome sin in our lives. Because sin can only be overcome in the now. In the past, we can ask for forgiveness through Jesus Christ, but we've already sinned. In the future, we can anticipate resisting, but we've not yet done so. And if we anticipate resisting in our own strength, chances are good we'll plan, but we won't follow through. I'm not going to ask for anybody to, reveal deep, dark secrets. But how many of you have really had something that, you just really want to overcome, and you really say, I'm not going to let that happen again, I'm not going to let that happen again, but it happens again. And one of the reasons it happens again is because your focus is either on the past or the future and not on the present. And your present focus has to include Jesus. In other words, the place that we overcome sin is abiding in Christ, focused in the moment, in the now. That's the only way we can overcome sin. John wants us to understand this. And so, in 1 John, he says,